Here we have a sad ending to the first king of Israel, King Saul. As you remember, for a number of years, Samuel has been the judge in Israel. But Israel demands a king. And that king is chosen as Saul to be ruler over Israel. However, Saul began good, but constantly he disobeyed God. He did not kill Amalek as God told him to, and he continued to disobey God until finally God's spirit departed from him, and at a time critical in his life, when the Philistines were around him, on Mount Gilboa, he sent to this little town of Endor, which is just behind us, to try to find a medium to find out what his future was going to be. Let's read about it in 1 Samuel chapter 28, beginning at verse 3. Now Samuel had died, and all Israel had lamented for him and buried him in Ramah, in his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the spiritists out of the land. Then the Philistines gathered together and came and encamped at Shunem. So Saul gathered all Israel together, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams, or by the Urim, or by the prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is obedient, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And the servants said to him, "In fact, there is a woman who is a medium in Endor." Endor is just behind us, a little town that is here. So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went with 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Please conduct a seance for me, and bring up for me the one that I shall name to you." Then the woman said to him, "Look, you know that what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and the spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life and cause me to die?" And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, "As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." The woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? For you are Saul." And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What did you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I saw a spirit ascending out of the earth." So he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is covered with a mantle." And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed down. Now Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Saul answered, "I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me and does not answer me anymore, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called you that you may reveal to me what I should do." Then Samuel said, "So why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy? And the Lord has done for himself, as he spoke by me, for the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord, to execute his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also deliver the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." So the next day on Mount Gilboa, Saul was slain together with his sons on Mount Gilboa. The kingdom was taken from him and given to David. And now here is Ari Bar David to tell us more about this incident in the life of King Saul.
So here we are again in Endor. Ein is a spring, and actually the sign is the best sign is the palm trees that are growing behind me. The location of Endor is very, very important. Mount Tabor is on my left side. Behind me in the horizon is Nazareth itself, where Jesus grew up. To my right side is the range of Mountain Gilboa. This is the place that Saul was and left in order to reach this place. Let me tell you, I don't know exactly how he arrived here. I can guess that he took horse. He had 2 other people with him. So even with horses, it will take him at least 1 hour to arrive here. And it was very dangerous because he had to pass through the Philistines area. Look how much he risked by coming to this place. There are many questions in this story, many things that we can discuss. We don't have the time for this, but I want to point on 3. I want to raise up 3 points. First of all, why God was so strong with all these people that raised up spirits, people that deal with witchcraft and so on. I think we have to go to Deuteronomy chapter 18. This is the famous chapter when God talks about a prophet that he will raise to Israel, like Moses. And he says he talks a lot about the prophet that he will give, but look what he says. When you will come to the land that I send you, that I bring you to, you shall not learn to follow the abomination of those nations. And then he's telling us about all kind of things that these people did, and between them they were passing their children in fire. They were practicing witchcraft or soothsayer, or they interpret omens or sorcerers, and they conjure spells or medium or spirits, or they called up the death. Look, God says very clear, because they did all these things, I decided to take them away and bring you to this land. Don't follow them. Don't do what they did, because if you will do it, I will kick you away also, like I did to them. Now, this is a very, very, very strong point. Saul, we have just read that he got rid of the mediums. So from this point, he did the right thing. But we see that it was only over the surface. Deep inside, Saul was still practicing these things. Now, when God left him, what happened? Because God didn't answer him, not by Urim and Tumim, not by visions or dreams, not by a prophet. Then he went to ask by a spiritist, by a model. Why God left Saul? I think it's very clear in 1 Samuel chapter 15. It's written because he didn't obey the will of God concerning Amalek. And look what Samuel told him there. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Why he says this word to Saul? Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. You see, Saul had a spirit of rebellion. He didn't like really to do the will of God. And he liked more to pretend that he's doing the will of God. I mean, to do something outside that people will see it. That's why he killed the spirits and all these mediums. But it was only outside, like to please God. You see, I'm doing it. but inside there was a very strong rebellion. And Samuel saw it, God saw it. And that's why he told him that a rebellion is like witchcraft. Look how dangerous is when we develop a rebellion attitude to God. Not only this, God said very, very clear to Saul, I have my way that you have to worship me, and this is my way and only my way. You cannot invent your own way. Now, what was another reason for this rebellion character of Saul? We find again and again that Saul was terribly afraid. Whenever he met the enemies, whenever he met the Philistines, he got terribly afraid. A lot of what he did was out of terrible frighten. And we remember what God said in Deuteronomy chapter 20, that if somebody is afraid, let him not go to the war. So Saul, the king, should not be at all in this war. You see the point? The moment God was not with him, he could not go to this war. And mainly when he was so afraid. So we can see here all kind of combinations of things they brought Saul to find this medium. Now, there is always a question. Was this medium raising up the real man, Samuel, or it was only like pretending to be Samuel? Many times I hear, I'm a tour guide, I have my bus, half of the bus says, no, it was not Samuel, it cannot be. Half of the bus always say, yes, it was Samuel. Some even say, yes, Lord gave permission to raise him just one time in the Bible here in this story. And then, of course, they ask me what I understand. And of course, I really suggest that you will read this passage again and again and think to yourself what you think about this. But I ask you one question. If God is not answering in a prayer, in a vision, in the word itself, in the word that is in the Bible, God will give us answer by mediums? This is the way of God? You see the problem here? And this is the danger of all this practicing with all these mediums. This is the danger because they look so much like the real one that even we believers can find ourselves falling in that trap. Yes, it was Samuel. You see, because it's so, because it looks the same, because it pretends to be almost the real, that's why God commanded to get rid of this. And that's why he said again in Deuteronomy chapter 18, I will give you a real prophet like the one, like Moses. To him you have to listen. And don't go to this kind of spiritist. He will say my word. He will give what I will put in his name. And this will be the sign that he is a true prophet. Whenever he will talk, all what he will say will really happen. Some will say, but here in this story, Samuel say, tomorrow you are with me, and all the camp of Israel. And it happened. So it should be that this was the real Samuel. Let me just say about this one thing. Later on in Chronicles, chapter 10, it's written something that is not written in Samuel. It's written that Saul died for his unfaithfulness, which he had committed against the Lord because he did not keep the word of the Lord, and also because he consulted a medium for guidance. You see, he consulted for medium for guidance. This was a test that God was putting Saul, the last test. And what Samuel, so-called Samuel, came up from the ground, actually just invited him to go with him down. I don't believe it was the spirit of Samuel. I really believe these are demonical spirits. And all what they know is to invite us to go to their kingdom, like God is inviting us to go to his kingdom. So let us remember the danger of practicing and even coming closer to this kind of things. And just last word, behind us there in the horizon is the place where Jesus spent his life. All around us are great stories of faith. Gideon was just minutes from here. Look, the faith that he showed and what victory he brought. Deborah was on the mountain here to the right, Mount Tabor. Look how God saved Israel by the faith that this woman had. All around us, we see the victorious hand of God. It's so pity that down here behind me, the first king of Israel just fell so deep, so low into this sin to go and to get advice from this demonic, for this a medium woman. So pity. It's really hard for me to end with such words and with such a story. I like to end my talkings with something to lift us up. And if I think what can lift us up, I really advise, let us read these scriptures, not as if they were written long time ago, belong to the Old Testament. They are actual for today. The world is all the time inviting us to such things. Let us run away. Let us escape, really escape from this occasion, these people that are doing these things. Because there is only one thing inside: death and total depression.